All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome Kazu Kibuishi, the Eisner-nominated creator of the #1 New York Times best-selling Amulet series of graphic novels and the comic collection Copper. He illustrated the covers of the 2013 paperback editions of the Harry Potter series in celebration of the series' 15th anniversary. Today, Kazu will be demonstrating how to draw some of your favorite Harry Potter characters live on this stage. You'll see it happening behind us on the big screen. Be sure to check out the Scholastic booth at the Harry Potter Expo in Soundstage 33 if you haven't done so yet, for your chance to win a printed, framed piece of the artwork he draws here today, as well as a Harry Potter book prize pack. So, the way that you enter is to go to Soundstage 33 and get yourself in that drawing. So, Kazu, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do this. This is really fun.
All right, so I think you kind of you started something earlier inside the soundstage, and you're just going to kind of continue on with that, yes?
Yeah, you know, I was in a media session about 20 minutes ago, and I started painting something, and I'm actually going to use that as a background element in the thing I'm going to paint right now. So okay. I'll start doing the painting, I'll drop that one in there, so you get a little extra material in there, and let's see what comes up.
That sounds good. I'll let you just kind of get to it. Now, a couple of amazing things while we were working on this last night as far as setting up the gear and making sure everything was working. A couple of things that you mentioned to me that I thought were pretty interesting was you really don't go into your paintings or the designs that you're going to make with a specific idea in mind. It's kind of like you just get some things up there and then you start chipping away at it to bring forth what it is that's being created while you're actually doing it. Explain that process a little bit for us.
It's a bit like sculpting. I often tell people I don't know how to make something that's good, but I know it when I see it. So what I do is I just go through a lot of iterations. I throw stuff down, I make a mess, and I try to turn that mess into the thing that I'm looking for. And so the process of drawing and painting for me is about finding the image more than creating the image.
Sure.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a mess, and okay. I'm going to start with a mess. Okay, so I'm using a tablet here. This is actually a really old tablet. I forgot when I got this one. I think it was towards the beginning of my career. This is still the same one that I used on the Harry Potter covers. I use this computer, I use this tablet here, and I draw on the tablet and it shows up on the screen. The way you see it right there.
I think we took this screen actually from your living room, didn't we?
So, this is my TV.
This is your TV?
Yeah.
Big, large.
No,
it's a 52 foot.
I need a bigger TV.
Okay, so while you're doing all this, explain to us, because I know you kind of like multitasking. So while this is all coming together, how did you get into illustrating, and how did you start your career? Like, what inspired you to get into this field?
What inspired me to get into the field was, I think it was when I was about maybe about 3 or 4 years old. I started reading comics while my mom was working at my grandma's Japanese restaurant in Torrance, California. I had to wait until she got off work, and what I did was I would read comics to teach myself English. And that's really how my love of comics started, was reading Garfield and Mad Magazine to try to figure out what was going on around me. Because I was learning a second language before I had really fully understood, my first one. Yeah, so that was, I think because of that, comics have always been in my life, like sort of, just as a guide. In some ways, and I felt comforted by them. I never really thought that I would be a professional comic artist. I didn't think that was something you could do. I thought I was going to be a doctor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I was young, I thought, okay, I'm set. I'm going to be a doctor because that's what my mom told me I was going to be. I'm like kind of the good first son that's going to go do whatever mom wants, and it was totally fine with me. And then over time, I realized that maybe you can use cartoons, you can use comics and a visual language to do things that doctors can do. Like you can actually help people. And now I use it to help people learn to read.
Awesome. So as this is coming together now, we can obviously start seeing some landscapes, and of course there's a lot of action that's happening up here behind us. What did you start? What were you doing when you first began drawing? Was it just kind of simple paper pen? Like what was your kind of favorite tools to kind of use to get into doing your drawing? What do you like most now?
Pencil and paper. I use really inexpensive material. I do that because I want to be able to be totally okay with throwing things away all the time. I'm constantly throwing stuff out, and if I'm too precious about it early on, I'm not gonna do that. So that's my favorite, pencil and paper. That's how I make Amulet. Harry Potter was a different situation because I was drawing it for somebody else, for a particular project that had very specific needs, and I would have to change things a lot, and I knew that that would be the case. And it's very difficult to go from a natural media to digital and constantly change. Every change would require several steps of extra work. And so in order for myself to be nimble, so to speak, with the process of work, I decided to go completely digital on this one. But you know, one of the most interesting things about working on it was that I really wanted it to look like natural media. So I chose not to use the fancy material, like fancy tricks that digital allowed. I actually decided to work on one layer. So if you're an artist out there, all the Harry Potter covers were actually painted on a single layer, so that it looked like I was using paint that was pushing up against each other, and then the colors were considering each other, and it didn't look so much like a collage, you know?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I was trying to replicate the idea of working in natural media. So what I'm going to do right now is actually bring in a background element that I've worked on in a previous presentation. See if I can find it. If I can. So I was painting this one in the media session about 15 minutes ago. And I had this plan. Let's see if it works. Try to drop it in here. Alright, so let's see if I can get it.
So what's interesting is as you're looking at this, of course, from your viewpoint here looking up, you know, obviously it's two different designs that have been dropped in as one. But as Kazu was mentioning earlier, and if I'm kind of following your train of thought on how you approach these things, now you're just taking multiple things that you've been working on, you just kind of put them together, and then you start, you know, that's the beauty, I guess, of the science of technology, is you can kind of go in and start removing things, as you were saying before, that now you really don't see or want to be seen.
Right, yeah, or just finding, I often like happy accidents, you know, things happening on the fly. When I see something occurring that looks like something that I want to retain, a lot of it comes by accident, and from some of the most unlikely sources. I remember when I was working on Harry Potter covers, I think it was a movie poster for an extremely violent foreign film. Like it was a Korean movie that was an inspiration for one of the covers. Just the design of it, the actual shape of it, you know, and you never know where you would find those kinds of inspiration. So I'm always constantly looking at other things around me. And sometimes you look at your own work, and so in this case, I painted that Hogwarts, and now I didn't really think about how it would fit into this image here, but I'm trying to find a way to make it happen. And in doing that, I'm trying to find some interesting things and working off of it.
So we see Hogwarts in the background there. Anybody want to take a guess at what possibly is going to be in the foreground? What's that? Quidditch? Okay. Is she right?
And she is right, because I actually I was thinking, hey, it's Super Bowl Sunday coming up, and why not?
By the way, Kazu is from Seattle, so it's kind of fitting. Kind of fitting.
Go Hawks! Sorry, Patriots fans.
Well, what's cool is, you know, when you first started out, you kind of see four pillars, and of course, for those diehard fans, you know, your mind starts going. You think, okay, what could this be? But there, you know, then at the same time, when you decide to insert, or as you would say, peel away and find something in there that is just kind of coming to your mind, sometimes you really, you know, as a spectator, you're looking at this, and you're like, one little line that's drawn, and all of a sudden everything kind of comes into focus. So for you, is it just kind of happening that way, where it just kind of you get this real, like a spark of a thought, and then all of a sudden you just find yourself, oh, okay, this is going to fit in here. This is what's happening.
I just like, I try to lean on the happy accidents happening and knowing that I just trust in my process. I know that I know how to solve the problems pretty well. So if I'm in a problem, I know how to get out of it because of all the times I've been in this situation. And so I'm just waiting for some interesting mistake to happen, and then from there I can turn it into take credit for my mistake and turn it into something really interesting.
Now, of course, you're doing this for us, as a group, as part of a large event. But would you say what you were doing right now is kind of your cadence? Is this the pace in which you create these animations, or is it usually kind of a longer process, or you just kind of let it go?
I work very, very fast. So another thing, I used to play a lot of baseball when I was a kid. And one thing about baseball that people don't really realize is it's a very strategic game. And most of the playing actually happens before the play actually begins. I was a shortstop. And what I would do is I'd plan everything and just work it out in my head before anything happened, so that within the 5-10 seconds where everything's got to happen, I know exactly what I have to do. If something goes a different way than I expected, if the ball took a different bounce, if it goes a different, you've got to know what plan to execute. I see drawing is sort of the same way. When I make my books, I'm always just planning it out. And then when I actually do it, when I actually put a book together, it happens lightning quick, and it's the same with all the drawings too. One of the things I love about art, I think it's a lot like sports. I was a big athlete when I was a kid.
Well, let's turn some things over. I know we've got some of our friends that are out in the audience here. And where is Brian? Is Brian out and about? Is he in the audience? Yes, Brian. Do we have I'm good, thank you. Let's grab somebody from the audience here and see if they have a question.
We just got out here, so let me check. This section here, would anyone have a question for us?
Anything that you'd like to ask Kazu? I know we've got 4 of our friends out here. Yes, there's someone there. What's her name?
What's your name? Isabel.
Hi, Isabel. What's your question?
Have you ever taken the Pottermore test to see what house you've gotten?
Always Hufflepuff.
Hufflepuff. All right.
Always Hufflepuff.
So speaking of Harry Potter and of course the houses and whatnot, what transitioned you from what you were doing, working on your books and whatnot? How did you get into being able to do the next series of covers?
I was approached about it. I actually, my creative director on my books on the Amulet series was the original designer of the Harry Potter logo as we know it. You often see it at Scholastic. He was the one who hired Mary Gramfrey to do the illustrations. And it was his task to repackage the books, and he asked me if I would give it a try. My first impression about that was that I was the wrong pick. I actually really thought I was not. I wasn't sure what David was thinking, and so I thought no, and I feel sorry for the poor sap that has to have that kind of pressure. That's kind of my first. That was my first, impression, and I really thought about it. I was like, gosh, it's been a while. And the kids that read my books know nothing about Harry Potter. And I was surprised about that. I was realizing a new generation is coming into reading books. And I thought, well, maybe I should give it a try because maybe I can introduce this and be the guy at the door to introduce these kids to this whole new level of reading and all this amazing stuff that they may not otherwise know about because it was something that their parents read. Or their big brother read, but maybe they didn't read it. And so I became that guy. And I submitted my samples, and they liked it. We started working on it.
What would you say was your favorite, if you had one, your favorite cover to do?
My favorite cover to do was to do the sketch. My favorite was Prisoner. But when I was painting it, I really enjoyed painting the current draft of Sorcerer's Stone.
Okay, so the first one.
Yeah, I think it was fun to paint because I felt like I was there.
So it looks like our field is coming together. Let's go back out to the audience. Steven, you've got somebody out there with you?
I sure do. I have Kutika.
Hi, Kutika.
She's from Orlando.
Ah, thanks for making the big trip out.
Thank you.
What's your question for Kazu?
I wanted to know like how much of the work is his imagination as opposed to what's derived from the books and inspiration from the story.
So the inspiration from the stories, as far as what you put into, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you put into the books, that's from your imagination plus kind of the imagination that you have to follow with the series itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's all from the books. It has. I had people vetting it, you know, so it all had to come from the text. But I was really, my art style is like my camera. And the way I saw it was that I was taking a trip out to Hogwarts and the surrounding areas, and I was tasked with taking nice photographs of the place with my camera, which was my style of art, you know. And so yeah, I didn't reference a lot of other popular media, including Mary Granfrey's work. I tried not to look too much at her work, and I didn't watch the movies again. I actually just stuck with the text and thought, like, try to think of it fresh and see what comes out. Yeah, it just looks like my style. I mean, it's just my style. I can't escape it. I learned long ago that I can't escape my style. I was actually criticized many times when I was younger for drawing in a very whimsical, cartoony style. And like a lot of people told me I had to change it a long time ago, but at the time I wasn't really making art to make a living. So I was like, well, I'm not going to change my style. I'm just going to keep it the way it is because that's just the way I draw. And I'm glad I did. And strangely enough, it was it was what I was asked to do, is actually paint these covers in my style and not anybody else's. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's actually very, very incredible. I love kind of glancing back and taking a look at how this is evolving. Let's go back out to the audience. We have Aaron. Aaron is out there. Looks like you have a couple people with you there, Aaron.
I do, Scotty. I have Kendra here, who's from Mexico City.
Hi, Kendra.
And Anna, who is from Charleston, South Carolina.
All right, very cool. Let's get some questions up here.
Now, these ladies kind of have questions. One leads into the other, so it's a two-part question.
Do they have choreography that goes along with their questions?
Yes.
All right. We'll come back and film that later. All right, let's get that question out there.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you how and when your hobby really became your passion.
It's a difficult question because I think it's more. It's not so much about passion. The hardest thing for me coming into being an artist was figuring out why it was worthy. Because I was willing to quit if it meant supporting my kids and helping people out. I just thought, like, my job should be something of value to society and not just to me, and not just because I'm passionate about it. So the hardest thing for me to find was what where do I hang my hat? Like, what do I hang my hat on and say, you know what, this is why I do it. And I read Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud, right, coming out of college. And I realized that comics are all around us. The drawing, like the way we use iconography and the way, an IKEA catalog, like an instruction booklet for how to put together your furniture. It's a comic book. The little card, the placard in an airplane that tells you how to get off of the plane and save your life is a comic strip. And it was everywhere, and I realized it was all around us. And that's when I realized, and it switched, my mind switched from following my passion to using the things that I felt I was really good at and applying it to things that I think could be useful out there. And I decided to use my skills to help people learn to read and learn things and love the idea of going to school. And that's really why I do the things I do. And it makes my job easier because I don't think of it as a selfish pursuit in any way. I just think of it as, this is my job now. You know, and I get passionate about doing my job. I mean, if I was at a bakery, I'd be just as happy. You know, like I want to run the bakery like the best to the best of my ability. You know, I used to work in retail. I used to work in pretty much every sector, and I loved every job that I had. That was something that surprised me because I thought, oh, I'm going to hate that job, so I would just go and try it. I was like, oh, I actually love this job. I love every job. The hardest thing was leaving those jobs to do something that I thought fit what I did best. And this is the one thing that I thought I did best, so I stuck with it. Otherwise, I'd probably be making movies or something.
That's a great question. Thank you so much.
Thanks for leading us down that path there.
Yeah, and you know, to that point, from what you were kind of saying, it kind of applies as kind of a principle, if you will, as far as leading your own life. You're not trying to do something just for the benefit of earning a paycheck. You found something where you felt it was beneficial or could be beneficial to other people. You got great at it, and the opportunities kind of evolved for you that you just kind of fit into. Kind of like the way that you're, painting. If I could compare the two, you're putting things up on there, and then as inspiration comes to you, you allow it to evolve.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I just kind of relax and just let it come to me.
Sure.
Yeah, and I just push forward, let it come to me.
Which can be to your point, a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it can be difficult, but if you're prepared,
right,
it can be a lot of fun.
Prepared with.
I'm having a blast, you guys. This is fun. I'm actually this is like my favorite part of my job.
Awesome. And we had the second part of that question.
Yeah. So taking the skills and education that you're passionate about, I have a design degree in both graphic design and illustration, and a real passion for it. So how did you take like those skills and that know-how and really get involved with the Harry Potter books themselves?
Well, I didn't. With the Harry Potter books, it wasn't. That wasn't my doing. Getting involved in there, I don't think it's something you can go and pursue.
Sure.
That's just something that happens along the way. The thing that I'm pursuing is creating books that help kids want to read, like want to learn about things around them. That's all I do with my series. And now I felt like I was augmenting the Harry Potter series with. I was actually adding to the mythology in that I was helping to introduce it to a completely different generation. So there's always this idea that I'm teaching somebody something, or trying to get people excited about learning.
So it sounded like it's an ideal, right? That's greater than what you think. Then you are something bigger that you can aspire towards.
I answered your question very well.
Yeah, well, I think what you're kind of getting at, which is what we've been discussing, is you've got a lot of knowledge, you've got a lot of things that you're aspiring towards. From I'm learning from Kazu is that you've got this information and this passion to do things that are above where you feel you are, so you're aspiring to something greater. And then if you stay true to that principle, then opportunities will arrive for you. As he said, he didn't seek out, doing the covers. It ended up in his path. Right. So it wasn't something where he answered an ad or whatnot. From him just kind of creating and doing and following his passion, that opportunity kind of came his way.
Yeah, I couldn't afford art school, so I went to a public college, and it was basically, I did film studies, which is essentially, it was a general education program. It was mostly studying movies that existed. It wasn't film production. That's not what I studied. I studied the art of watching movies. And there's an actual degree for that, and I have it. And it was great. It was actually the best place for me because it just taught me to sit back and relax and study things. I was sitting in the library just studying microfiche about the history of film, about how things come together. I was watching all these movies that I never would have seen otherwise, especially old movies. And I fell in love with all that stuff. And now I had all this stuff that I could put into the things that I was good at doing. And so all that knowledge that I gained from studying other things, I bring into my drawing skills. And now I bring something to the table. It's not all that difficult to become good at illustrating. I mean, it's hard, but it really just requires a commitment and a lot of time. 10,000 hours of practice will get you to an expert level. You keep, building on that, and you will become a master at it. But what are you bringing to the table with that skill? Sometimes people don't know, and they just try to keep making themselves better, but they're not sure what for. And when I was younger, my question, for myself as a young artist growing up was, why am I doing this? And once I figured that out, I was like, okay, now I know how to apply all this stuff. And finding that why, I think, is the most important thing, because it's what's going to keep you going and keep you on track to get 10,000 hours of practice at whatever you decide to do.
Keep practicing. Great question. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Let's move forward. Yes, here we go. Do you have a question there, Rusty?
We do. I have Archie who came all the way from Orlando.
Good.
And to ask you a question along the same lines as well.
Okay.
Amazing. Hi, Kazu. As an aspiring illustrator, how can you describe your process as far as making a concept, but keeping it original? It's like we're all inspired by different things, but we want to keep an original style. So how can you describe your process as far as making it?
Keeping it original. Well, when every artist has their sources, like the things that inspire them. I think of drawing a lot like cooking, and I feel like when I'm studying other art or studying sports, studying the world around me, I'm finding ingredients to put into the art. So I take pride in taking things from outside of my field and bringing it in. I want to share things that I learn about a totally different subject than art and bring it into art. I mean, that's just my personal take on it. And I'm hoping that I can bring it into the community of artists and then say, hey guys, look, this is really cool. Like, we could do things a little bit differently. And so I'm always trying to bring in information from outside and bring it in. And I'm always practicing and trying to get better, just so that I have a stage to present all that stuff. So I think of it like cooking. I assemble inspiration from everything and cobble it together and see what happens. And there's chemistry, like, happens. Like, interesting things happen, and then I just build off of that, and then people just give me credit for that.
Do you think, like, when you were first starting out, were you doing a lot of, you said you had a couple comics, of course, that you were attracted to. Do you feel like when you first started, putting pencil to paper, that you were kind of imitating to a certain degree, like trying to copy what it was that you were looking at, and then as you learned, it kind of just evolved into your own style?
Yes, as a high schooler. That was back in high school. I was doing that. I think the way I was so directly inspired by things that other people were doing, I did almost the same thing, but I could tell that I was nowhere near as good, and that was one of the most frustrating things. But what I realized is you can't look at a particular thing, the final product, and know how it got to be that way. You have to see what they're looking at and throwing into their blender to create that thing.
Right.
And that's something that I didn't really understand. I was throwing their final, it's like, you're making a casserole, and you don't want to begin with a casserole. You don't throw another casserole into your casserole, right? So,
right.
To make it, you need to know what the ingredients are, and so you want to see what they're looking at. That's when I started doing my homework and getting really passionate about homework. I wasn't the best student until I realized that it actually applied to the things I'm passionate about. And so I did start studying the history of art and all these different things, and I started throwing in these things into the blender, and it turned into something similar to my heroes because I was looking at the same things. That would include looking at Peanuts, by Charles Schultz, and looking at Crazy Cat by George Harriman, just so I can know what Bill Watterson was thinking about when he did Calvin and Hobbes, things like that. And the mentors of Hayao Miyazaki, like not just looking at Hayao Miyazaki's work, which I do all the time, but now I know who his mentors were. So I collected books by them, and I started collecting all this information, and then it became this new stew that was my style.
Right.
That just became the look and aesthetic and feel of what I do. It's just this huge stew of things that I ended up finding out about because I wanted to know what my heroes were doing.
So where's our friend who just asked that question? Where do you go? Stand up one more time there. So you're wanting to be, I assume, an illustrator, going to school for it and whatnot. Is it, you feel like that was, did that answer your question? Because from what I gather from what Kazu is saying is that you figure out sometimes through imitation of what it is that you want to do, and you create a skill level for that imitation, and then the more that you put into it by what you observe around you and what you decide to put in it, I think it evolves into your own. and then those opportunities for people to see it, and then they do the same thing. You know, and it just kind of perpetuates that way. So one thing I think is, as Kazu was saying, you just keep going, you keep, you know, potentially imitating, and then your originalness will come, you know, through there. And then don't be, as you were saying, like we were talking last night, you can't be too hard on yourself about what it is that you're doing.
No, yeah, I mean, it just takes time. It takes everybody time. It's really a matter of committing to all this. I like to tell young artists not to keep trying to seek opportunity, but rather prepare for an opportunity when it arises. Right. You know, so like when nobody's looking your way, that's when you should. That's a great opportunity. That's when you should be happy, because nobody has any expectations about what you do. They have no idea, and they're not leveling you with this expectation. So during that time, you just getting better, so that you know that when you show up that day, when they say, "Hey, what are you doing?" that you'll be fully prepared for that moment, because you won't want to be caught off guard, you know. And that's really the way I do all of my work. I just practice a lot, and I like the idea of practicing. I like repetition. I like getting better at just tiny little things, you know. And now it becomes, you know, really relaxing and engaging to do very complicated things, because you know you practiced it.
Well, I'll tell you, when you guys have an opportunity, we've got about 15 minutes left here still in the session. But I think we're making a lot of really good progress. So what you're looking at behind us on the screen is the resolution. I mean, you're able to make out, but when you see what's happening actually on the screen itself, it is like you were in the bookstore looking at the actual cover of a book. This is absolutely amazing from the view that we have it here on stage, and you'll be able to see this in Soundstage 33. Tomorrow as well, while you're going through the Scholastic booth. So I think we're good. It looks like we've got another question. Yes? Okay, Brian?
Yeah, right here we have Jessica from Savannah.
Hello, Jessica from Savannah.
My first question was about, you know, fear-free yourself out there, but you answered that one beautifully. Then, you know, you were leading into, you know, putting yourself out there and self-promoting. Did you start with, like, an online portfolio and, you know, you were just doing that, and, you know, because I did hear you know, you were talking about you did your own book series, so just self-promoting was my question. Yeah,
I actually I had a webcomic called Copper that became really popular. I actually drew that for a magazine that is no longer in print. They just asked me to fill some space. They said, "We don't have any money. You want to just put a comic in this square space that we have in the back of the magazine?" So I said, "Sure. I mean, I'm not doing any comics. I'd like to just have a place to put them now." So I did that, and then when that magazine went under, I just kept drawing them for my website, and then people found it. And a lot of my heroes actually found it, and they found me, and they said, "Who are you? Where have you been?" And they really embraced me and brought me into the fold, and ever since it's just been kind of a roller coaster. It's just been it's just been a straight shot to where things are now. It's almost a blur.
So would you say, to kind of cap off that question, that however you feel the need or whatever resources you have to put your work out there, just get it out there?
Yeah. You just yeah, exactly. You never know what is the right opportunity. You don't really create it, but you can find it, just like a surfer looking for a wave. Sometimes you need to just take the little waves, and sometimes they're great waves. And you'll learn something doing that. One of the best stories, I think, in comics is the success of Gary Larson, who did The Far Side. And I think he was a record store employee when he was doing cartoons. He's working at a record store. He went to the local newspaper, showed him some cartoons, and they said, "We'll buy that for, I think, $5 or something like that." And then he went back to the record store and quit his job and started doing that for the rest of his, until the success of The Far Side. And so, you never know. That's what I'm saying. So just keep putting stuff out there. Things might happen, and if they don't, just keep practicing. Now you have an opportunity to get better for the moment when somebody does look your way.
I suppose on top of that as well, because I'm imagining now you kind of just putting a bunch of material out there, that to your point that you made earlier, there is no real such thing as a failed project or not good, because you've got your own perception of what it is that you're doing. So then you can put it out there because everybody's perception of what you're doing is going to be different from depending on who's looking at it.
Honestly, you want to find ways to fail safely. That's like, I think, the key is like if you can fail in the privacy of your own home, just like mess up. and then you can learn from the mistakes, that whatever mistakes you feel you've made, you know, and it's one of the best things. Just don't be afraid to do it. Just go out there and fall down and then get up.
Thank you. Great question. Steven.
Hey guys, I have Griffin from Tampa.
Hey, Griffin.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Are you enjoying yourself?
I'm having a blast.
I just asked you like 3 questions. You ask us one now.
All right. If you could draw yourself as a comic book superhero, how would you portray yourself and what powers would you have?
Be Spider-Man.
And we know what power.
That's it.
I know, that's it. All right. Good question. So why Spider-Man?
Oh, I just like the character. I like that he's just a hard-working kid, you know, trying to make it out in the city. And I don't know. He doesn't have issues really, so he's not like Batman. Batman's all messed up, you know. And Superman's got some problems too because he's got like family issues. That's why he's here, you know. Peter Parker, he's got a good family. He's a hard-working kid. He just got bit by a spider, and then he looks really cool. Like when that was my favorite superhero. Drawing Spider-Man would have been the superhero comic I would have wanted to draw as a kid. But yeah, I love Spider-Man. He's my favorite by far.
Cool question. Thank you. All right, let's go over to Aaron.
Hi, my name's Aubrey. I'm from Tempe, Arizona, and I'm just thrilled to be here. But something that I feel like you've danced around a little bit is essentially how daunting is it to create something that, you have your base of your book, you have your movies, and then you have your fanatics. Just how do you make that your own, stay passionate, and essentially recreate something that's living inside the imagination of so many people? How do you do that and stay true to yourself?
Great question.
When I was working on it, I didn't think about any of those things. It didn't even dawn on me how big the project was until I was on Good Morning America. So by then I had already finished the project, so it was okay. You know, like I'm glad that David Saylor at Scholastic did a really good job of shielding me from all of that while we were making it. It was secret, so nobody knew that I was working on them. People knew that it was being worked on. I think people were complaining about the fact that it was being worked on, but no one knew who was actually doing the covers. And I just hope that when they heard that it was me, that people did breathe a sigh of relief, you know, that it was going to be well taken care of, because that's what I intended to do. I intended to be like Hagrid, carrying baby Harry and delivering him to where he needed to be, and that's how I felt like when I was working on the project. And so it was not daunting. In that, because of the people I had around me, they just kept it away. They just kept me protected, and it was great. It was just a great work environment.
So have a solid team around you. That's how. Good question. All right, there we go. Russ, you have another question for us?
Yes, I do. I have Aiden from Point St. Lucie.
Aiden has been here for like a week. Hey, Aiden.
Hey, Kazu, I just want to thank you for making these wonderful illustrations. Thank you for coming.
Oh, hey.
My question is, have you ever met J.K. Rowling? And if you did, were you nervous about it?
No, I haven't. I'd really like to. I haven't been to Edinburgh. That's where she is, right? And no, we haven't. I only know she likes the covers. And that's it. Scholastic is the American publisher. Bloomsbury is the British publisher. So I like know nothing about the foreign editions of my books. So I think it's similar in that, like, I have no control over how they do the covers for my books in other countries. Yeah, I don't know about it.
So they can be changed in some way?
And they are sometimes,
okay.
But they keep the art usually, and they'll just change the logo because it's in a different language. But But no, I don't have much of a say in that, except for like, hey, I know I just get told by Scholastic, hey, it's going to be in Turkey. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's it. And so I get the impression that when I was doing the covers, she was probably like really busy with, with her new books.
Sure.
Yeah, and her new projects, and then she saw this email come in. She's like, oh, that's pleasant. That's good. So I have a feeling that's how it went down. But it would be really nice to get a cup of tea with her sometime and just chat about writing.
Awesome. So let's take a look here. Let's see what we got going on. We've got a couple minutes left. What do you think? Coming together pretty nice, yes? Absolutely. Brian, let's go back over to you.
Hey, I have Matthew here, and he is all the way from the city beautiful Orlando.
All right, thanks for making the trip out. Matthew, what's your question?
Thanks for having me. I just wanted to know, what did you think about having a degree versus being self-taught? I'm a self-taught illustrator, and I found that it's difficult trying to prove yourself and kind of learn things as well as you're talking about. Do you think it's a better idea to look into schooling or just keep fighting uphill?
I think it's a good idea to find a community of other artists like you. And if that means going to a school, then that's what that means. In my case, I found them online. And I found them just as I went to like a figure drawing class once, just a random workshop in the city of LA, and I met a couple of my best friends for the rest of my life, like just other students. They were just kids. I think in high school at the time, they were just drawing figure drawings, and then they ended up having careers doing it. We all saw how serious we were about the work, and we kind of came together because of it. So really, you can find that camaraderie in a lot of different places if you can't afford, a private education at an art school. You could still find it online at online forums and things like that, where other artists are hanging out and make friends basically with these people and really just encourage each other to keep going. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you, because you're also, even if you don't make it, at least you'll have fun,
So for what Matthew sounds like he's trying to do you think, based enough to look at it from like an industry perspective, okay, so do you feel more so now that people are either looking at what kind of background and degree you have, or do you feel they're just looking for raw skill?
No, with what you're doing here, your degree does not matter. Having a degree, I think, matters just because it shows that you have a commitment to furthering your education. Beyond that, an artist can look at a work in seconds, know how much time that person spent on it. It's instant. And within seconds, they'll feel it. They'll be like, and then they'll have to look at a few pieces, and then I'll know how much time you put in. So you really can't hide, behind a degree or anything like that. You really have to just put the time in. And if you did, and trust me, because other artists know how hard it is, they will help you out as much as they can, because it's such a small community. If we see somebody that is just doing it right, then everybody else will try to help pave that way for them to find their way. And hopefully they stick with it, because a lot of people do quit. And that's the saddest thing when you see that.
Hope that answers your question, Matthew. Thank you so much. That was great. We got time for one more. Stephen, let's go back to you, sir.
Thank you. I have another O-Town resident.
Awesome.
By the name of Celestial.
Celestial.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, besides the different colors, what do you use for your working mediums, and what medium did you start off with, if not a different?
Good question.
Well, Photoshop's really a tool. I'm actually just doing, these are basic, what I'm doing right now is all kind of basic illustration technique stuff. I'm not using a lot of the fancy stuff aside from the lighting, so just pen and ink. Most of the work that I used to do was pen and ink, not pencil so much. And I would pencil the illustration and I would do it in ink. I haven't worked with ink in a long time because you can scan pencil to look like ink. So now it's just pencil and paper. Like every year, it feels like it's just getting simpler and simpler. It's more about the ideas and the execution and how you use the tools, not so much about the tools. You know, you just use anything, really, honestly. Whatever's in front of you, just use it. You can probably make something great out of, if you have potatoes, you can probably make something great with that. I mean, seriously, if you're a great artist, you'll find a way. It's all about the creativity and how you solve these problems. It's not so much about the tools. You know, just use something that you like, you're comfortable with. And again, if an artist sees the work that you do with a potato, they'll know how good you are just by looking at it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that question. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, what you are seeing on the screen behind us here is a very unique creation, one of a kind, that is being developed by Kazu Kibuishi. We're going to have that on display, or if he's going to finish it up, the folks from Scholastic will be able to let you know exactly how this is going to be won. But you can enter to win what is being created behind us right now over at the Scholastic booth at Soundstage 33, excuse me, throughout the rest of our expo weekend here in this celebration of Harry Potter 2015. How about a big round of applause for Kazu? Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Yeah, no problem.
This is odd because I know what you really want to do is just kind of sit here and
I'll just sit here, guys, and
finish this up.
Don't mind me.
If everybody just go